Now, 5 new cases of the COVID-19 and a travel ban. That's the story here in Nigeria as the COVID-19 pandemic spreads globally. The Secretary to the Government of the Federation here in Nigeria, Boss Mustapha, who doubles as the chairman, Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, addressed the media yesterday.
He said that the Nigerian government is restricting entry into the country for travelers from 13 countries, including China, the UK, the US, Italy, Japan, and Netherlands. According to Boss Mustapha, the travel ban is a precaution against the spread of COVID-19 in the country and will take effect from Saturday.
You will recall that yesterday, Tuesday, 17th March 2020, the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, set up by Mr. President, was inaugurated and it held its first briefing. You will also recall that the Presidential Task Force at the end of the meeting announced the ban on all forms of travels by public officers and civil servants until further notice. This morning, we have found it necessary to brief Nigerians on further measures being taken after an assessment of the global situation. They are as follows. 1, the federal government of Nigeria is restricting entry into the country for travelers from the following 13 nations: China, Italy, Iran, South Korea, Spain, Japan, France, Germany, Norway, the United States of America, the United Kingdom, Netherlands, and Switzerland. These are all countries with over 1,000 cases domestically. All persons arriving, number 2, all persons arriving in Nigeria who might have visited these countries 15 days prior to such arrival will be subjected to supervised self-isolation and testing for 14 days. The federal government is, number 3, the federal government is temporarily suspending the issuance of all visas on arrival. Number 4, the federal government is also counseling all Nigerians to cancel or postpone all non-essential travels to these countries. And number 5, the federal government urges public health authorities of countries with high burden to conduct diligent departure screening of passengers and also endorses travel advisories to their nationals to postpone travels to Nigeria. And fourthly, these restrictions will come into effect from Saturday, 21st of March 2020, and it will last for the following 4 weeks, subject to review as the situation unfolds.
Meanwhile, Nigeria is confirming 5 new cases of coronavirus. The Minister of Health, Ehanire Osagie, says the patients had a travel history to the United Kingdom and the United States. He says 4 of the patients are Nigerians, while 1 is a U.S. citizen. The Health Commissioner in Lagos also gave an update on the coronavirus patients in Nigeria's commercial capital. But first to speak is the Health Minister, Ehanire Osagie.
Total number of confirmed cases in our country to 8. Of the 5 new positive cases, 3 arrived from the United States, while 2 came from the United Kingdom. We are still collating information on the travelers, but we know that 2 of the 3 from the United States are Nigerian, a mother and her child, making this 6-week-old baby the youngest COVID-19 patient we have. And the 3rd person is an American national who crossed the land border and became the first COVID-19 case who did not arrive by air. The 2 cases from the United Kingdom are Nigerians. A detailed travel history of each person is still being compiled, and contacts are currently being traced to identify persons who have recently been in touch with any one of them.
Joining us now to take a look at the COVID-19 from the pharmacist perspective is Tomi Ladega, Superintendent Pharmacist at Drugstock.He Limited, a leading tech-driven pharmaceutical distribution company in Nigeria. Tomi, thank you so much for joining us on the show this morning.
Good morning.
Let me begin by asking you, how has this pandemic impacted the supply of pharmaceutical products and services in Nigeria, bearing in mind that a lot of countries are dependent on China for vital drugs?
Thank you very much. Currently, we are trying to curtail any form of scarcity or drug hoarding in Nigeria at the moment. But I can say that the pharmaceutical sector in Nigeria is doing her best to ensure that products are not held back in scarcity, or we're trying to inflate products when it is not necessary to do so. So currently, the situation is still...
There are no shortages?
For now, no.
No shortages for now. I'm quite excited. Another thing I'd like to talk to you about real quickly is testing kits.
Yeah.
Very important. The World Health Organization says test, test, test.
Yes.
But a lot of people can test because it's Nigeria, and because we understand the dynamics as regards testing.
Yes.
Are pharmaceutical companies working on testing kits, getting in active agents and the likes to spread testing kits?
Yes.
And our pharmacies even selling self-testing kits. Because if you want to get this to test out, I want to be able to walk into a pharmacy, just like I get a pregnancy test, I should be able to get a coronavirus test.
Yes. So currently, globally, I can say that pharmaceutical companies are working on self-testing kits.
Good.
But I know Rush is highly on one, and we hope that very soon it will be spread around the country. But, you know, before these things can, this current coronavirus is the first of its kind. So it's not as if there has been any testing kit for this particular coronavirus before now, so to speak, that has been distributed. So we're working around the clock to make sure that once these kits are FDA has approved, the one for Roche, and they're trying to see how best to, you know, disseminate it around the world. And once that is in motion, we are all hands on deck to make sure that at least your nearest pharmaceutical outlet has one for everybody to be able to at least self-test. Yes.
So, okay, let's talk about, you know, finding a cure. The former chairman of INEC, Professor Maurice Iwu, had said that him and his team have been able to identify a possible treatment of the virus, and they were working on sending it to the United States. And currently, WHO has confirmed that there are about 20 vaccines being worked, 20 vaccines being worked on globally. Yeah. What's being done currently in your circles? I mean, Nigerian medical doctors, we are known to be ahead when it comes to these kind of things. What's being done in these circles?
So I'll say that in the pharmaceutical sector in Nigeria, a lot is being done on the ground to make sure that, so first for now, we need to even curtail the spread while we are looking for what treatment measure is going to come up for this virus. We're not going to wait for because ideally for a drug to be produced and manufactured and go through all the stages, it takes years, right? So we're not going to, looking at a pandemic case like this, we'll definitely have some kind of waivers, emergency waivers through some stages. Of course, there are some stages that cannot be waived at all. So it's not going to happen in 2 days or 3 days. So while that is going on the ground, I can assure you a lot of research is going on about over 30 vaccines are being developed daily and then going through clinical trial stages and all to ensure that we find a cure to this thing. But while we're waiting for that, we all need to ensure that we are safe and we curtail the spread of this virus by the preventive measures that are out there.
Indeed, I like that you brought in manufacturing into this, drug manufacturing. But before then, help clarify the air, because the essay to the Lagos State Governor on Health yesterday said on a live broadcast that a lot of people have the notion that COVID-19 tests are like the pregnancy test kits or the HIV test kits, blood. It is not blood, and it is not a test kit that you can find over the counter and will not be over the counter. It's sort of a liquid and all of that. Perhaps you're the expert here, pharmacists will know better. So it is not a test kit you can buy or like the pregnancy test.
You can't buy any test kit right now for coronavirus. Current, as at now.
Work has been done to develop a self-testing kit.
Develop it. But right now you can't find any self-test kit. What you can only do is self-isolate and then a sample of your, so they do a swab. Sputum and all that will be taken to the lab where they take you through some series of testing. It takes about 3 days as of now. I think one country has been able to develop a measure that brings shorter time. I think I said I can't remember what exactly.
So let's talk about the manufacturing you talked about. Why are we not producing drugs here, and why is that so hard to do? And also, isn't this a perfect time to look inwards and to free China of that chokehold of drug manufacturing? What is the problem? What is holding us back?
So we actually produce drugs here. We have a few pharmaceutical production companies in Nigeria. We have the likes of Emzo and quite a lot of them. Sorry about that. But the thing about it is that for you to manufacture a drug, it takes a whole lot. We don't have the capacity in Nigeria. I'll just use one example: light. Power. That's just one example out of many other things. Sourcing of active ingredients is one other major one. So China is known for, production and sourcing of active ingredients alongside with Japan and a few other companies.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Tomi, sorry to interrupt you, but we'll have to go on a quick break.
All right.
But we'll come back. We'll talk some more about COVID-19 and what the pharmacists are really doing at this time. Join us again on The Morning Show.
All right, I'd like to have you back on The Morning Show right here on Arise News. And we're talking to Tomi Ladega, superintendent pharmacist at our drugstore eHub Limited. We're talking about coronavirus, vaccination, and the likes. And I mean, I think we talked about cure, but it has to be said that there is no cure for it. What the vaccination does is alert your immune system, let your immune system be aware of the virus so your immune system can fight it. So it's a trigger. So the talk about a cure, no, maybe the symptoms can be treated. And there seems to be a ray of hope. On Monday, they started testing in Seattle, in America, human trials for these drugs. And some messages we're getting out of America is it's looking okay. Let's not also forget to commend Nigeria for being the first country to send the genome sequencing that they can even use to create those vaccines. What do you say about all of that?
So going to, I can't remember what you asked me the other time about what we're doing in the Nigerian medical field and the pharmaceutical field to see to the cure of coronavirus all around the world. That's part of what has been done. So the vaccine now, we don't have it here in Nigeria. And for now, we're just going to keep doing what we can do to make sure that we have the global world.
No, what do you have to say about that? That human trial going on in Seattle, ray of hope. Are you following it?
Yes, I am following it, and it's like you said, it's just a ray of hope. Until we get to the final end stage, it's just a ray of hope. You get because a lot of studies go on in developing a pharmaceutical product. So for now, there is a ray of hope. And we have to wait, so we can't say 90% is 100%. We have to wait till it's 100% before they can even release it out to say, okay, for example, in the treatment of the symptoms, we have that China has used chloroquine and a bit of some other drugs. I don't want to mention because I don't want people to start going out to look for it. Because a lot of people now are looking for chloroquine to use, and that is dangerous because there are side effects of chloroquine itself. So yes, there is a vaccine being developed and there is a ray of hope, but we need to wait to see what comes out of it eventually before we can actually say, okay, we've hit the nail on the head for coronavirus.
And please don't self-medicate. Please.
Please.
So as a pharmacist and someone that understands the biological traits of COVID-19, I mean, earlier in our rundown, we did speak about the travel ban that was just implemented by the federal government from 13 endemic countries. How do you feel about the efforts of the NCDC and, the Lagos state government and other governments, state governments as well as the Ministry of Health on the curb or, controlling the spread of COVID-19? Is this something we should have done earlier? Do you think that we should shut down, do a travel ban on more countries?
Sincerely, if you ask me personally, travel ban should have been done way before now. We should do a travel ban on all countries, even the countries that are not reported to have coronavirus right now. I feel that we should do a travel ban on almost all the countries, not even almost all the countries. But I would say it's overwhelming for NCDC, for the federal government, for everyone. So really, we're not going to depend on the federal government for everything. We all need to take our own self-protective measures to make sure that protects yourself from the spread of coronavirus. Hence, all the measures, do not go to public places for now, use your hand sanitizers. Actually, wash your hands when you have soap and water. So when you know that you don't have access to soap and water, you have your hand sanitizers handy, you use them. And hand sanitizers, you don't just use, okay, I've used for 2 seconds. At least rub and use for up to 20 seconds. Right, when you use them, and then maintain healthy distance, 5 meters. I mean, at least. You're laughing because.
Don't be like that.
Yeah. And then if you find out that you're coughing so the basic symptoms, cough, dry cough, and fever. But you see, fever may not come if somebody has it today. Fever will not start manifesting today. Right. So, but as soon as you begin to see that you have some symptoms, fever, slight fever, you're coughing, please, the way to help to curtail this is that we should not be selfish. We need to love ourselves at this time. So if you find out that you have a symptom, please self-isolate first. And then find a way to get through to the NCDC and every other body that is involved, so that we can ensure that the right thing is done for you. Really, the mortality rate is a bit low compared to the rate of it being an infectious disease, and that's why it's so widespread right now. But if we can curtail it early enough, a lot can be done.
Indeed, and that's why it should not be referred to as a deadly virus at this point. 2 questions here. You have said there are no shortages of drugs.
Yes, as
at now,
to make sure that we
because
don't have
NAFDAC had raised their alarm weeks back that we depend so much on China, we might be seeing shortages. But you said there's no shortages for now. But when you look at steps taken by different governments, including the Nigerian government, on this travel ban imposed on these countries, everybody's shutting down. Are we likely to see those shortages, even though China is trying to pick up manufacturing now? That's one. Secondly, I want to ask you about herbal medicine, because even the WHO says about some 80% of those in African and Asian countries depend on herbal medicine for primary health care. What are we doing? I mean, that's your field in pharmaceuticals. What are we doing in Nigeria? Because when you look at the global market share, even though 80% of our population depend on it, we seem to have taste buds for foreign herbal medicine. What are we doing wrongly there?
Okay, so I'll take that was the first question you asked. I'll take that shortage. So as regards this shortage, as much as we
I should stay away from you now.
So as much as we know that coronavirus didn't start today, we have had speculations before now on what it may likely happen in the country. So aside from, there is a federal government and there is a private sector too. So a lot of people in the private sector, as much as public sector too, has taken it up on themselves to ensure that we provide for this period before now. Hence why I said there is no scarcity for now. It now depends on how long this lingers on for. before we now begin to say, okay, there may be likely scarcity of some things. But for now, we have been able to manage the situation for a few periods to ensure that the drug distribution system and the supply chain is, steady for at least a little while before we see what happens. Hopefully, God helps us and we're able to curtail it. China is curtailing it somehow now, so we hope that we're able to do that in good time. As regards the herbal medicine, so it's a lot. If we open up that discussion now, we're not going to end. But I can also tell you as well that there's a lot of research going on the ground as regards herbal medications. Now, the thing about herbal medications is that as much as, yes, a lot of the trees we have around are medicinal, I can confirm that to you. But also, so there's a reason why, for example, you take your drug and there is a drug dosage.
Yes.
So you take your paracetamol and they tell you that there is an overdose and there is, the right dose for you to use. That is the major issue with herbal medication. There is usually no, dosage, so to speak. And this is...
Not empirical.
Yes, okay. Exactly. And if we don't take care of that side of the herbal medication field, we just have a lot of people using herbal medications without dosage, and then your liver, kidney, majority of the organs. And once a particular organ is affected, it leads to every other organ. So work is being done on the ground, I can tell you, in the pharmaceutical field, to make sure that we have a larger share in the herbal medicinal world in the country.
Okay, I quickly want to talk about this. So, there's a presidential task force as regards coronavirus led by Boss Mustapha, Secretary of the Federal Government. Yeah. But I have not seen a narrowed down coalition as regards this. I have not heard Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria being brought into this coalition, for instance. Yeah. I have not heard, radiologists, people that do tests, manufacturers of medical equipment and ventilators and the likes. It's not a broad coalition yet. By now, I should be thinking that everybody in the value chain of medicine in this country should be part of that coalition. I mean, how do you feel as regards that? I've not heard anything about PSM.
I'm not going to express how I feel here, because if I'm going to express how I feel, then it's going to be a whole lot. But really, it's sad. It's really sad to see that, to know that we are not...
Please express how you feel here. No, let us... you know why? Because I have not heard anything like, okay, we are here, task force and the likes. They're not bringing Pharmaceutical Society into it. They're not bringing, a medical health workers. So there's a lot of disunity.
I mean, what is happening? There's a lot of disunity, and you find a lot of politics, for the lack of a better word, happening all around. So Pharmaceutical Society is doing their own. I can say they're doing their best. Medical professionals are doing their own. Politics doing their own. It's where we find ourselves.
I mean, I think to just kind of reiterate the point that Rufai is trying to make, at this point, I was watching an interview and they said that it's the time for stakeholders and the elite, and not necessarily elite when it comes to social class. Those that have the knowledge regarding these things need to come together because the coronavirus is something that we all face as a foe. Yeah. So politicizing it at this point, isn't there a way to break that down?
Well, I'm not sure of the broader way to break it down, but I know that a lot of subgroups are available all around. I belong to some groups, where, one or two groups, where we're trying to do a couple of things on the ground in our own way. And that's why I said we're not going to depend on federal government for everything. If we're going to do that, then we're not going to head anywhere. So everybody, I urge every medical professional in their field, radiologists, pharmacists, lab scientists, to do what they can do. So if we do all of these little things everywhere, probably everything will come up together one day, and then, we can have a space high up there.
And it's very shocking and painful that all of this is going on the heels of the strike by resident doctors. Yes, let's also look at that.